So how do you search for things? I mean, we think to ourselves, what do you mean, how do you search for things? I mean, you search for them. But actually, people search for things in different ways. You could even take Stephanie and me as an example. I'll say to Stephanie, where's the screwdriver? And she'll say, it's in the junk drawer. You got a junk drawer? You know, okay. She's like, it's in a junk drawer. So I'll open the junk drawer, and I'm like, it's not in here. And she'll walk over, and she'll just move like a piece of paper or something. There it is, the junk drawer. Well, that's just a little preamble to how we shop together, because that's when we really are different in how we look for things. We go into a store together. If I'm with Stephanie, I mean, of course, the first thing is the clearance rack. You have to go back to the clearance rack first. And then it's every hanger, every single hanger. And she's looking at it. You know, this is the motion of shopping, by the way, just so you know. And she's looking at every single thing. Now, me, when I go into a store shopping, it's completely different. I walk in about 6 inches inside the front door. I look around and say, it's not here, and I leave. I'm like a drone, you know, that's kind of how I shop. You know, just she's very detailed. She looks at all of the little individual things about it, and I'm just like scoping it out from a big picture and deciding, yeah, it's probably not in here, and out I go. You know, it's interesting how we search for things. Now, you know, a lot of times it's the way the way we search for things is directly proportionate to the actual thing we're searching for. I hate shopping. I don't care. I got enough clothes. You know, and yet that's very important to her, and so she's into all the details. So I have this question for you. How do you search for God? How do you search for God? Do you do it in sort of the scientific manner, where you really are looking for all the data, all the details? I mean, you want to find out every little bit about it and find him? Do you do it like a lawyer who's trying to come up with all the evidence or all the history or even engage in debate about it to learn more about it? Or do you do it like online dating? You know, where you just kind of get a picture of it and decide, do I want to take that any further? Do I want to actually have a first date with this person? And then maybe I'll talk to somebody who knows that person, and then I'll decide. I mean, we'll take it very slow, very general, won't really give it much thought. You see, this is what's interesting about the letter to the Ephesians. It's all about finding God. And when you find God, you ultimately discover yourself. You find yourself. And so we've been walking through this series called Who Am I?, looking at this letter called Ephesians. And it's a letter that this guy named Paul wrote to his friends in Ephesus while he was in a Roman prison. And he's writing it to encourage them. And so in the first 3 chapters of it, you see all about what we believe as followers of Christ. And then the second 3 chapters is all how we should live because of what we believe. And so we've been answering the question, who am I, as we've walked through that. Now here's what's important. You got to know who the letter's written to. And he emphasizes that it's written to the Gentiles. Now, as we talked about in the last few weeks, we don't go up and call people Gentiles, but it's simply this: anyone who wasn't a Jew. Anyone who wasn't a Jew was a Gentile. Anyone who wasn't a believer in what Jews believed was referred to as a Gentile. It's just a simple word to describe them. And he talks about God calling him to bring this great message of Jesus to these non-Jews, these people who were unbelievers. And they discovered it and they believed it. And that's where we want to pick up the reading in chapter 3, verse 2. If you have a Bible or device, you can go there, or we'll put some verses up on the screen. Surely you have heard about the administration of God's grace that was given to me for you. That is, the mystery made known to me by revelation, as I have already written briefly. In reading this, then, you'll be able to understand my insight into the mystery of Christ. Now I want to pause there and just say, really, if you read the whole Bible from start to finish, it's all about these things that are happening in the world throughout history and what God's doing in the world. It's unpacking the mystery of God's involvement in them, God's purpose in them, all these things that were going on. And ultimately, it's that a relationship with God or understanding God or connection with God is found through faith. That's not just some New Testament thing. I mean, that's in there from the very beginning. And here's what Paul's saying. He's saying all of these mysteries about the Bible, stuff that you don't get, you don't understand, well, there's a mystery in there about Christ. I want to tell you what the truth is about Christ. I'm going to reveal it to you as God's revealed it to me. And although there's plenty of evidence about the truth of Jesus, I mean, you can go out there and look at all this evidence for his resurrection, for instance. Ultimately, listen now, men and women, ultimately, you cannot believe in Jesus Christ without God revealing it to you. You can't do it on your own. It's not an intellectual decision that you make when we talk about being a Christ follower. It's all about God revealing the mystery of Christ. And this mystery of Christ awakens us to who we are and who he is and how much we need him. Now, how does he do that? Well, first of all, I want to just say it straight out. God awakens us with revelation. That's the word he used. Now, revelation is a word often people relegate to a study of the last book of the Bible, Revelation. But really, it's when God reveals something to be true to you. So how do you decide if something's true? Are you a facts person? Do you gather all the data and then put it together and decide, well, the evidence and the facts give me a conclusion as to what's true? Are you a facts person? Or maybe you're a feelings person. I just know in my gut this is true. Or maybe you're a family person. You know, this is what I've always known. I mean, it's just how I was brought up. It's what I've always believed, and I've embraced it. Or maybe you're a polling person. You find out what all the people around you believe, and you go with the majority. I mean, seriously, in this room today, we have all four of those kind of people. I mean, all of you exist in here today. Different ways of determining whether or not you think something is true. Here's the thing. None of those, by themselves, are enough to enable you to believe in the message of Jesus Christ. None of them. Here's why. The message of Christ is faith in someone you cannot 100% historically, scientifically prove. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to this. Yes, there are facts, there are feelings, there are traditions, and there are even groups that are real and relevant to all of this information that you've gathered to make a decision about what you're going to follow in your life. But ultimately, God's plan is to reveal the truth of Jesus Christ to you. He himself does it. Paul says, by his Spirit, he reveals it to you. Now, if you press rewind and go back to chapter 2, verse 8, here's what he said, because this is what it's all about. For it is by grace you have been saved. How? Through faith. And it's not of yourselves. It's not in your ability to put together this amazing term paper that ultimately is convincing to you. No, it's all about God revealing it to you through faith. You can accumulate a lot of facts about the resurrection, and I often present those to you. You can feel guilt for your sin. You can walk in the beliefs of your family, and you can connect to the opinions of your community. But the only way that you can fully embrace the reality of Jesus is by God opening your eyes through revelation. His Spirit convinces you and calls you. Because notice what Paul calls it here, the mystery of Christ. The mystery of Christ. Now, those of us who grew up in homes where, we were always taken to church or we were always taught Bible stories, we have a little trouble sometimes thinking, what's so mysterious about it? I mean, I've always known this. Well, that's the whole point. It's a mystery that only through faith you can embrace. You see, here's what he said. God gave Paul insight into the mystery of Christ, and he reveals that mystery to these people through his words, through his message. And what is the mystery he's revealing? Again, rewind. Here's the mystery. God's grace saves you from the eternal consequences of your sin if you put your faith in Jesus Christ's death on the cross. Now, honestly, you walk in the room, you hear that for the first time, and you're saying to yourself, You try to spell that. I mean, you say to yourself, what? How does that make any sense? Well, it's not a rational thought contrived by experimentation, but it's an acceptance of the revelation God gives you by His Spirit. The only way you can actually embrace that for yourself is through faith. And so I'm going to just say to you, if you've denied the claims of Jesus Christ, is it because you gave it an honest look and came to your own conclusion? Or have you been limiting yourself to believe only what you can prove with your facts, your family, your feelings, or your polling? I mean, have you narrowed yourself down to only what these five senses can ultimately experience? But when you open as Paul called it back in the first chapter, when you open the eyes of your heart, then you have the opportunity for God to reveal Himself to you. Really, only then will He be able to reveal Himself to you. So today, the only way that you can believe that Jesus is the Son of God and your Savior is through revelation. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this in my life. There was a young man named Matt, who a young man in our youth ministry, Nathan, always invited to stuff that we were doing. And actually, he had a lot of friends that he would invite. And I would even go out and do stuff with these guys all the time, and we'd get into serious conversations. And often it was about the facts of the resurrection, or the facts of the existence of Jesus in history, the facts on whether or not the Bible actually was written in the words that we have today. We'd have all these conversations. And even these guys, this is a high school senior, and he'd get real philosophical about it as well. It was always so interesting to me how much he wanted to take me on in all of these conversations. But I wasn't interested in being taken on or winning a debate. I was interested in God opening the eyes of his heart. And so I would just share with him the truth and ask him if he wanted to embrace it. And finally, one day, we weren't in a group conversation. It was just Matt and I talking. And he said this. He says, you know what? I get it now. It's not what I know. It's what I believe. It's not just what I know. It's what I believe. He said this, I feel like I've just woken up. Like all this time we've been talking about it, everything's been the same pretty much in every conversation, but now all of a sudden I get it. And see, that's what Matt couldn't explain, is that he had received this to be true by faith. By faith. See, Paul continued explaining God's revelation here, because that's ultimately how we get it, is through God. Chapter 3, verse 5. Here's what he says. Which was not made known to the people in other generations, and it has now been revealed by the Spirit to God's holy apostles and prophets. Here he's talking about this mystery of Christ. It wasn't made known to people in other generations, but now you get to hear it through his apostles and prophets, he says, because God doesn't just awaken us with revelation, he awakens us in his timing. His timing is perfect. Now, let me just ask a simple question. Do you like to control situations? Let me rephrase it. Do you like to attempt to control all situations? I mean, I'm like that. I get it. Sometimes I'm trying to choose where and when things will happen. I try to make sure there's a plan there. I try to account for all the variables so we keep on schedule, so that we stay safe, so we're free from worry, and what we all plan for is to get what we want. I have plans for what I want. And so we put it in these categories, and honestly, the Jews were like that. Because these Jewish leaders wanted to be in control of their message, and they wanted to be in control of their people. And as a result, since they weren't expecting their Savior to look like, act like, or talk like Jesus, they didn't believe. They rejected him. And God chose to keep control of his world by choosing the exact time to implement his plan. He also chose the exact time to not only open up the eyes of these Gentiles, but even the Jews themselves, and the ones who would ultimately allow their heart's eyes to see the truth. Why? Well, why? Why was this the right time to reveal this? Why didn't God choose to open up the eyes of people's hearts sooner? Well, get ready. Here it is, because I've got just an amazing, brilliant thing that I want to tell you today. Huge revelation to me this week as we studied this, and I'm going to deliver it to you. Why didn't God choose to open up the eyes of people's hearts sooner? I don't know. I don't know. And the thing is, you don't know either. Because there are things about God and what he does that I'll never know. I have no idea. But some things he chooses to reveal to us. Well, he said it there, which was not made known to the people in other generations, as it has now been revealed by the Spirit to God's holy apostles and prophets. You see, this is where a lot of people struggle. You know, they want to be in control of their lives so much that they even want to control the timing and methods that God chooses to deliver information to his world. And you heard it. You know, you've heard these things before, and these are very tough questions. If he is love, why is there starvation? Why is there genocide? Why are people mass murdered? You know, that's a great question. And if he wants us to believe in him, why not just appear in the sky and audibly speak to us? Wouldn't it go a lot faster? You know, and if he wanted to save everyone, why did he wait so long to send Jesus to the world? I mean, I get it. These are great questions. And we want to control the method and timing by saying he should have done it differently or he should have done it sooner. We do that. We play this in our minds, and I get it. That's just it. The whole point of faith in God is to trust his ways, and his timing is perfect and right and just and in the best interest of all of us in his loving plan. That's what faith is. And so we look at, for instance, that timing of Jesus coming to the world. I mean, think about it. Why not just bring Jesus to the world right there in the Garden of Eden when they first messed up? I mean, we could have gotten ahead of this problem, right? I mean, why not bring Jesus instead of some big ark and a flood? I mean, the world's desperately wicked, and so let's just bring Jesus in. He'll fix it all, right? I don't know. But this is what God chose to do. God's timing is a mystery. And this is what Paul's explaining to them. Look at verses 8 and 9. Although I am less than the least of all the Lord's people, this grace was given me to preach to the Gentiles the boundless riches of Christ and to make plain to everyone the administration of this mystery, which for ages past was kept hidden in God who created all things. You see, let's start with the end of that phrase there. He created all things. Now, I just want you to know that that part right there tells me he has certain privileges that are reserved for him. He's created all of it. This is his world. So if he wants to hide certain things from certain generations until the right time, until his timing, then he's entitled to do that. That's what faith is all about. Trusting him. Believing that he knows what's best. And here's the thing that he wants you to understand. First of all, what Paul makes clear. Here it is. The mystery is for all to hear. He makes it clear. It's for everyone to hear. Second, for some reason only known to God, he saved it for this time in history to be experienced by the Gentiles. He's awakening us to his timing because these two things become exceedingly important to what we're all about. Look at verse 10. His intent was that now, through the church, the manifold wisdom of God should be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms. That now, this moment in time, he's chosen to do it. His wise plan is being revealed to everyone, including those in places we haven't seen or experienced yet. So now, for them, and listen, now for you. His plan is also revealed to you right now. You who maybe up to this point have just, you've heard about it, you've been out there, you've debated it, you maybe are looking for the facts, but you just haven't been able to grasp it. It's kind of like you've been asleep as this message has been shared with you. And then he takes us to the point of all of it. Verse 12. In him and through faith in him, we may approach God with freedom and confidence. That's what this is all about. God awakens us to his purpose. To see that we can, in fact, be in relationship with him, that we can approach him, that we can be connected with him. What was this purpose? He said it earlier. To experience his grace. That's it. You can't get that on your own. That only comes when he opens up your eyes to it. I used the example of sleeping before, and I don't know how you sleep, if you're a sound sleeper or halfway awake sleeper. I'm a pretty sound sleeper. When I'm sleeping, I have no idea what's going on around me. You could steal my whole house and I probably wouldn't wake up. It's just when you get into that deep sleep, you just aren't conscious of it. You aren't aware of that reality. And when we haven't opened up the eyes of our hearts to God's revelation, it's like we're sleeping. It's like we're unaware of God's purpose. We're unaware of God's reality for us. Oh, there's a few facts out there that we're cognizant of, that we've maybe wrestled with a little bit. But in the end, when we haven't embraced it, it's like we're asleep. But today, in his timing, he's revealing to you his purpose and your purpose. And here are those purposes. First, to know you need him. To know you need him. This is what he said all along. You know in your life you failed. You know in your life you've sinned. That's what the Bible calls it. You know you've missed the mark as what God has designed you to be and to do. That's what it made clear. But second, to know that he has reconciled you in all of that sin by taking your punishment for it on the cross. Reconciling me. He built this bridge between you and him, and he's just asking you to walk across the bridge. Third, that he will connect with you and relate to you. That you can come before him with freedom and confidence that he loves you. This is what he wants for you. And fourth, and when you believe, you become part of his church. Not buildings and names, but actually everyone who's a follower of Jesus. That's the church. And in turn, and here's what I want everybody who's a follower of Christ to know. It's through the church, followers of Jesus, that this mystery is revealed to the world. That's what he just said. To you and me. Not keeping it to ourselves and say, woohoo, I'm part of the club. No, but to go out into the world and demonstrate in your life and with your words the love and grace of Jesus. Your life now has a purpose beyond your mere physical existence and then ultimately your death. You're worth so much more than that to God. So I don't know, when I'm sleeping, here's my typical response when someone turns the light on. Hey, turn the light off. I mean, that's how I want to stay asleep. They turn the light on, turn the light off so I can stay sleeping. Where other people might, when the light goes on, say, oh, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. Now see, that's essentially what happens when this mystery of Christ is being shared with you, revealed to you. You either yell out, turn off the light, or you say, it's time to wake up. I mean, those are the two realities and responses. See, today he's turning on the light switch. His Spirit showing you the truth about him and about you. And will you yell, turn off the light, I'm sleeping, or will you say, it's time to get up? It's time to see and hear and believe and receive this message that Jesus loves me and that he wants to forgive me of my sins and have me receive that forgiveness. And he wants to change my whole life and actually help me identify who he created me to be. This is his purpose. So have you been casually looking for God from just inside the door, kind of scoping out the landscape and deciding whether or not you want to even try? Have you been relegating yourself to just what your five senses can complete and discover and conclude? Or are you opening up the eyes of your heart to his Spirit speaking to you today, now, at a time that he has ordained? He's sharing with you the mystery of Christ. How open are you to being awakened today? Who am I? You're someone God wants to reveal the mystery of his great grace to. Someone who he wants to be awake.